The Sega Neptune is being released in Brazil. When it comes to Brazil, there are many reasons to be jealous of this great nation. Renowned for its glorious beaches, beautiful women, and a football team that actually wins international tournaments, there are plenty of excuses to celebrate and have carnivals. But perhaps my favourite Brazil fact of all is that this is technically the region where Sega never left the console wars. While on the whole 2024 has been a year generally filled with bitter disappointments for gamers worldwide, it seems that a glimmer of pure joy is emerging in Brazil. For those unfamiliar with this surprisingly interesting and vibrant gaming market, Brazil's gaming scene is perhaps one of the most unique globally, with historical events helping to shape an alternative console landscape to that of the West. As discussed on this channel in the past year, you will likely be aware that during the infamous Sega and Nintendo console war, Sega not only dominated the Brazilian market but has continued to thrive in some capacity over there for decades thereafter. Even today, Sega remains a significant and beloved figure within this community, and now it's about to add another accolade to its national list of bizarre gaming milestones. The real-life release of the mysterious Neptune, a planned, unreleased, all-in-one piece of hardware that was designed to play both Sega Mega Drive titles and Sega 32X games alike. Now, of course, we have discussed the murky past of this forgotten platform from the 90s previously, which raises the question, what is this modern release of the Neptune all about, and why is such hardware being released close to 30 years after it was initially planned? Let's answer those questions today. I am Lady Decade. Hit that subscribe button for retro goodness, as this is why the Neptune is finally being released. Coca-Cola versus Pepsi, Rock vs Austin, and Sega vs Nintendo were some of the greatest rivalries of the 90s, but as I just mentioned, the console war between Sega and Nintendo unfolded quite differently in Brazil. While the Super Nintendo would ultimately emerge as the most popular 16-bit console globally in Brazil due to the country's high import tariffs, this made foreign electronics prohibitively expensive. This made it more challenging for Japanese companies to make an impact in the region. However, when Tectoy, a local company, approached Sega in 1992 with a proposal to manufacture Sega products domestically, this would change the dynamic of the console wars in the country permanently. This strategic move for Sega would transpire to be an excellent decision, and it was certainly another way to give the finger to Nintendo. This ingenious partnership allowed Sega to bypass the import tariffs, in turn making their consoles more affordable and accessible to Brazilian gamers, essentially allowing for Sega to do what Nintendo don't, and giving them the edge they needed to excel within this massive and still largely untapped market. Nintendo, on the other hand, were more reluctant to hand over the reins to someone else due to their massive fears regarding piracy and losing control over their product's quality and distribution. This dwindling left them trailing behind in the country for decades. What's even more insane though is that 8 and 16-bit Sega consoles didn't just flourish, they would never fully die either, with both ranges being produced as budget lines of consoles in the country right up until this very day. Over the years, Tectoy's innovative approach has allowed them to release multiple unique versions of the Mega Drive, precisely tailored to the Brazilian market. They've adeptly rebranded and repackaged the console to align with local market trends and preferences, what feels like a countless amount of times. This in turn resulted in various models such as the Mega Drive 2, Mega Drive 3, Super Mega Drive 3, Mega Drive 4, and even more. Each features unique packing, games and promotional offers. There's no doubt that Tectoy's ability to adapt and innovate ensured that Sega's consoles remained popular and relevant in Brazil year after year. By regularly introducing new versions, features and a plethora of bespoke ports of popular games, Tectoy kept the consoles appealing to subsets of Brazilian gamers well into the Xbox and PlayStation periods and beyond. Their efforts have successfully preserved and extended Sega's legacy in the region, making Brazil a unique stronghold for Sega's classic gaming culture. Essentially, it's a bit like that strange little region in Moldova known as Transnistria, where they still recognise themselves as being a part of the USSR. Sometimes reality is stranger than fiction. Holding this wealth of cool trivia about this nation in mind, you can really start to understand why Brazil would serve as the perfect fertile ground for the long-awaited rival of the Neptune. However, what may surprise you is that by this point, the legendary tech toy have nothing to do with this one. But to really appreciate the arrival of the console, most felt we would never get. Let's quickly turn to the Neptune's past itself.
Genesis brings you the dazzling powers of the mystic warriors, the ninja, in Revenge of Shinobi.
Back in the early to mid-90s, during the famous and extremely well-documented 16-bit console wars between Sega and Nintendo, the gaming industry was on the verge of transformation with the imminent release of the Sony PlayStation. This era marked by significant competition from consoles like the Atari Jaguar, 3DO, Amiga CD32, FM Towns Marty and PC FX. While all of these weird and wonderful pieces of hardware seem to be very exciting, it is of course worth noting that these all technically failed. Failed rather hard in fact, but their mere existence doesn't mean that they wouldn't influence a lot of Sega's decision making during the period. In 1994, Sega of America was riding high off the back of its Sega Genesis and was keen to expand its market share. So they started exploring various options to remain as competitive as possible. In order to do this, Sega developed several hardware add-ons, including the infamous Sega 32X. The point of this often considered dubious device was to expand the lifespan of the Mega Drive by enhancing its capabilities and, in the process, offering significantly better graphics. The hope was that it would offer new gaming experiences and act as a more affordable alternative to Sega's true next-generation hardware. The system that would come to be known as the Saturn. But this is where things get even more insane. The 32X wasn't the only idea that Sega was working on. It's well known at this stage that Sega had nearly an entire solar system of both released and unreleased hardware, much of which didn't see the light of day. One of these alluring cancelled projects was the Sega Neptune. Records of the period illustrate to us that the idea behind the Sega Neptune was to integrate the Mega Drive and 32X hardware into a single streamlined console. This all-in-one device, which was initially set to be released in either late 1995 or early 1996, aimed to simplify the gaming setup for consumers who would no longer need to purchase and connect multiple pieces of hardware. Let's be honest, we all know what an absolute mess the Tower of Power is when plugged in, and you needed about 55 different plug sockets to even turn it on. A machine that literally didn't look like it was hooked on life support would have been glorious. While a 32X variant might sound balmy now, back then, by combining the Mega Drive and 32X, Sega hoped to offer a cost-effective and user-friendly solution that could compete with the emerging 32-bit consoles like Sony's PlayStation and the upcoming Sega Saturn. A console that could play modern releases as well as consumes existing 16-bit libraries is a lovely idea, particularly if the 32X had been properly supported and received decent releases. Eons ago, the Neptune was reported on in several gaming magazines in 1995, with expectations of a sub-$200 price point, positioning it as an attractive alternative amidst the high-priced 32-bit systems like the 3DO. However, the simultaneous release of the Sega Saturn and its competitive pricing pressures led Sega to cancel the Neptune project in early 1996. Despite its cancellation, the Neptune's story continued. In 2001, an April Fool's joke about finding Neptune units in a warehouse kept its legend alive. A genuine prototype console shell later appeared at the National Video Game Museum in Frisco, Texas. Rumours suggested that a former Sega employee saved these prototypes from being discarded. This period in gaming history, marked by Sega's innovative but ultimately unrealised efforts, remains a fascinating chapter, but what's most important to garner from this is that the gaming public has remained highly interested in this unreleased piece of hardware. After all, everyone loves a gaming mystery, and what's more mysterious than this enigmatic machinery? No matter what you think of the original idea, the Neptune represents a critical moment in Sega's history, illustrating their efforts to innovate and adapt in a rapidly evolving gaming market. Technology felt like it was moving at a significantly faster pace back in the 90s than it does now, so it's no wonder some ideas end up being just left behind. However, while for the most part the Neptune has remained a mere concept, in the crazy country of Brazil, the Neptune is finally rising, and consumers will finally be able to purchase that Sega Mega Drive 32X all-in-one unit that they have always dreamed of. But this raises the question, how is this fever dream finally becoming a reality? 2024 has seen the announcement take place that a console known as the GF1 Neptune is emerging, a new system that carries the spirit of Sega's innovative legacy into the modern era. Developed entirely in Brazil by Gamescare, this delectable piece of hardware is set to revitalise and celebrate the unique relationship between Sega and the Brazilian gaming community, and hopefully make a splash globally too. Hopefully, if you've been paying attention today, you will realise that the GF1 Neptune is so much more than just a console. It feels like a tribute to the enduring legacy of Sega in Brazil. Just as originally proposed back in the day, this new device promises to seamlessly combine the greatness of the classic Mega Drive and the now controversial 32X into a single streamlined console, very much like the original concept of the Sega Neptune. Bringing it further in line with the mythological system of a bygone era, the Brazilian console shell replicates the form factor of Sega's lost piece of hardware too. So the platform doesn't just function how the original Neptune intended, it looks like it as well. However, what is also important to note is that this is not a console that simply utilises mid-90s technology. Being modern hardware, it has a number of features and quality of life updates that make it fully compatible with 2020's setups. For example, the GF1 Neptune integrates an HDMI connection with 1080p resolution and digital audio, as well as includes an SD card slot for easy updates and media storage. Paired with high-speed wireless internet for accessing exclusive content and high-quality analog sound and video outputs, the Neptune is looking even better than when it was originally planned close to 30 years ago. What's more awesome is that modern advancements don't stop there. The GF1 Neptune ensures that gamers can enjoy both the nostalgic experiences of classic Sega games to the point of being able to use their real-life cartridges and the convenience of contemporary gaming technology by taking advantage of the amazingness that is FPGA technology. While we have been stuck with more rudimentary emulation in the past, today awesome systems exist such as the Analog Pocket, a brilliant handheld I have in my personal collection that, like the Neptune, is an FPGA device. FPGA consoles are gaming devices designed to recreate the hardware of classic video game consoles at the circuit level using FPGA technology, which stands for Field Programmable Gate Array. This approach differs from traditional emulation that relies on software to mimic the behaviour of old consoles on modern hardware, with instead FPGA consoles simulating the actual physical circuits of the original systems, allowing for an extremely accurate reproduction of their functionality. This will make the GF1 Neptune run its library of games far better than the majority of clone consoles of the past. So, holding these thoughts, the main advantage of using FPGA for gaming consoles is the precise hardware simulation it offers. This level of accuracy ensures that games not only run exactly as they originally did in terms of graphics and gameplay, but also maintain the specific timing, behaviour and even hardware quirks of the first generation consoles. This results in a much more authentic gaming experience compared to software emulation. Furthermore, FPGA consoles generally feature lower latency than their software-based counterparts. Since the games are executed on replicated hardware, the response times from controller inputs are quicker, which is particularly beneficial for fast-paced, timing-sensitive games. Paired with all the modern advantages, a lot would have a better time playing 32X games on the Neptune than using the original 32X hardware. Although, let's be honest, does anyone really enjoy the 32X? Building on the Neptune in a very, very literal sense, in fact, the GF1 Neptune is planned to be fully compatible with original Sega CD hardware, and future peripherals also promise to expand its utility and appeal to a broad audience. Another feature that looks to imitate what the original Neptune once did. I, for one, cannot wait to see what they announce at the end of the month regarding this new hardware's future. Regarding the people behind this device, we seem to be in safe hands. As mentioned earlier, it's being developed by GamesCare. GamesCare is a Brazilian company specialising in developing and manufacturing high-quality retro gaming products dedicated to preserving and revitalising classic gaming experiences for local gamers. Their website offers a treasure trove of fun hardware, mods, consoles, components, and more or less anything you can think of, so check that out when you get a chance. In my opinion at least, the release of the GF1 Neptune in Brazil is profoundly significant, with it paying homage to Brazil's unique position in Sega's global history. Thanks to Tectoy's efforts back in the 90s, Sega consoles became deeply entrenched in Brazilian gaming culture, with the company's innovative adaptations and local manufacturing making Sega products more accessible in the region and fostering a loyal and passionate fan base that persists to this very day. Releasing the GF1 Neptune in Brazil is poetic and both acknowledges the rich history of Sega in the country and demonstrates a deep respect for the Brazilian gamers who have kept Sega's console legacy alive, way past the point it died off elsewhere. Pair all of this with the fact that many Sega fans globally have been craving to own the Neptune for literally generations. Brazil is the perfect place to finish the story finally. Thank you for watching through to this point. Subscribe if you haven't already, and if you fancy having up to 90% off a brand new game, then please visit my instant gaming affiliate link in the description. Ciao!